Is Azruddin Mohamed a national security threat? Is he a security risk for Guyana? And let me be lucidly clear on this also. Yes.
Hello to all our viewers watching from Guyana, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, Suriname, and other parts of the world. Welcome or welcome back. Today, political shockwaves continue to ripple through Georgetown. Foreign dignitaries meeting face-to-face last Friday with the U.S.-sanctioned businessman and presidential hopeful, Azruddin Mohamed. Mohamed, leader of the We Invest in Nationhood Party, or WIN, is gunning to unseat the ruling People's Progressive Party, a government critics label as corrupt, and accused of squandering the nation's oil wealth while ordinary Guyanese remain in poverty. On August 8, 2025, WIN Public Relations team announced its leaders and executive members met with senior representatives of the ambassadors and high commissioners of the United States, Britain, Canada, and the European Union, also called the ABCEU. The meeting, hosted at WIN's campaign office at Greenfield East Bank, Demerara, was attended by the British High Commissioner to Guyana, Jane Miller, Political Affairs Officer of the United States Embassy in Guyana, Henry Rector, Canadian High Commissioner to Guyana, Sebastian Seguin, and the head of delegation of the European Union in Guyana, René Van Ness. These powerful foreign representatives met with presidential candidate Azruddin Mohamed and top party officials. Mainstream Guyanese media reported that Friday's meeting with WIN is not unique to Mohamed's party, as the ABCEU diplomatic community is engaging with all 6 parties that are contesting Guyana's September 2025 elections. What makes this meeting unique is the fact that we're talking about Azruddin Mohamed, who is continuously getting bashed by the ruling political party as a sanctioned criminal unfit to hold government office. More significantly is that these diplomatic encounters just weeks before the September 1 elections have ignited fierce debates and stirred up curiosity. So we're asking you this: is this a bold play by WIN for legitimacy or a dangerous flirtation with foreign influence? You're watching The Final Takeaway. For more of our future videos, subscribe and turn on YouTube notifications for updates. Now let's turn our attention back to this breaking development. According to WIN's party campaign office, quote, "The meeting underscored the shared commitment to ensuring free, fair, and peaceful elections in Guyana. Discussions also addressed sustainable development, inclusive economic growth, and perspectives on the evolving political landscape." That being said, this is a big deal and the optics are unmistakable. Mohamed, sanctioned by the United States, still able to command attention of key foreign representatives? But why now? Why this push for diplomatic visibility at this point in the campaign? Here is a political reality check for y'all. The PPP has painted Mohamed as a criminal unfit to lead, carving out special time each week to remind the nation of the U.S. sanctions alleging gold smuggling, money laundering, drug trafficking, $1 billion tax fraud, etc., etc. Mohamed continues to defend himself by alleging the sanctions were politically motivated and that the PPP is weaponizing Washington's measures to keep him off the ballot and out of office.
It's not the government that publicized Azruddin Mohamed linked to gold smuggling, drug trafficking, links to Venezuela, and other illegalities. These accusations of publication was not the government of Guyana. It is Reuters that published an international article in which they claim that they had enough evidence based on their research. And this was long before he announced his candidacy. So this sympathy narrative, as if the government of Guyana is the entity that is going after him, is totally false.
By meeting with foreign dignitaries, Mohamed hopes to send this clear message: I am not isolated. I'm a legitimate player. The world is willing to work with me. You could bet your bottom dollar that that must have sent a harsh blow to the ruling party. And guys, get this. Once these photographs of handshakes and smiling diplomats landed on mainstream newscasts, it was a major public spectacle. It signals a huge public relations win, pun intended. For Mohamed, the potential upsides are significant. For example, credibility boost. Images of foreign engagement counter PPP's media attacks, and it shows he can hold his own on the world stage. Secondly, political insurance. Diplomatic interest makes it harder for opponents to quietly undermine or disqualify his candidacy without risking accusations of anti-democratic behavior. And there is the factor of momentum. The perception of global interest could energize disillusioned voters, those tired of the PPP's handling of oil revenue and rising cost of living. But there's another side to this coin, and the risks are just as real. Let's talk about risks and backlash. First, the perception of foreign dependency. PPP spokespersons are already branding Mohamed as, quote, Venezuela's puppet. They point to his alleged multiple visits to the Venezuelan Embassy in Guyana and even his recent visa application to Caracas, allegedly, and linking him to President Nicolas Maduro, a leader locked in a tense border dispute with Guyana over the oil-rich Essequibo region. Secondly, Western skepticism. A cold shoulder from key Western capitals could reinforce the sanctions stigma. Yet, European Union and the United States officials met with Mohamed last week. How about that be a slap in the face for the naysayers? Should the nation risk reading too much into this as a positive sign? Here's the catch. Meeting with Mohamed doesn't mean Brussels, London, or Washington endorse him. Thirdly, and last but not least, when it comes to risks and backlash, domestic mistrust. For some Guyanese, foreign political courtship, especially from Venezuela, feels like a threat to sovereignty. And make no mistake, the PPP is capitalizing on every one of those issues. PPP's General Secretary Bara Jagdeo, who's also the Vice President, doubled down, accusing Mohamed of using Venezuelan channels to influence Guyanese politics, and warning that such ties could jeopardize national security.
Recently, several U.S. congressmen said he's Maduro's puppet and that they work closely with Venezuela. Recently, the foreign minister had reason to summon the Venezuelan ambassador and ask him, why did this happen? This gentleman poses a national security risk.
Guyana's Foreign Minister Hugh Todd went further, saying that if it's clear the Mohammeds are close to Maduro, it poses a serious threat to Guyana's sovereignty. We have to ask you this, guys. Is this just political mudslinging or a deliberate strategy to frame Mohamed not as a fresh alternative to the PPP or the PNCR-APNU parties, or as a risky gamble for Guyana's independence? Now here's where the story takes an institutional twist. The Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, has already weighed in, at least in terms of the formalities. On July 1, 2025, GECOM approved WIN's party symbol, a leopard, after initial concerns about politicizing national symbols such as the jaguar. Mohamed launched a clever argument saying it wasn't a jaguar but a leopard, and got approval to use the animal as the party's symbol. Hey, both animals look like each other. They both have spots, so what's the diff? Since then, WIN has successfully submitted its full slate of candidates across all constituencies. Here's what that translates to. Legally, the party is fully recognized and cleared to contest the September 1 elections, which raises a big question. Does GECOM's approval legitimize a party led by a sanctioned man? Technically, yes. GCOM's role is to enforce electoral laws, not foreign policy. As long as the presidential candidate meets the constitutional requirements, foreign sanctions alone cannot block participation. Let me repeat that. Foreign sanctions alone cannot cause GCOM to block Mohamed's participation. Politically speaking, it's more complicated. Approval might reassure supporters, but opponents will argue it's merely procedural, not an endorsement of character or fitness for office. So what does all of this mean for Mohamed, and for when? If he can spin these diplomatic meetings into a narrative of international respect and cooperation, he might chip away at the PPP's image of him as an outlaw. But if PPP's messaging sticks, if voters see these foreign ties as proof of hidden agendas, it could reinforce every accusation they've leveled against Mohamed. In the weeks ahead, expect the PPP to double down more on the sovereignty argument concerning Venezuela, and for Win to push harder on the legitimacy and credibility front, in a campaign already defined by oil wealth, corruption claims, and political mistrust. These meetings with foreign leaders and dignitaries could prove to be either Mohamed's boldest masterstroke or his most damaging misstep. September 1st is coming fast, and with it, Guyana's choice. Do these diplomatic handshakes represent the world recognizing an underdog, or the first cracks in Guyana's national independence? Only the voters will decide. I'm your host, and this is The Final Takeaway. We'll keep you updated on more stories like these, so stay tuned for the next video.